Thursday, and you know what that means. Episode 3 of the D-Pad Wrestling YouTube channel is here. Welcome, everyone. I am Matt Fischioni alongside with my good friend, Mark Bassler, MFB. You guys saw him making his D-Pad Wrestling debut on episode 2, where we covered our top 3 matches of WWE Clash at the Castle. And for today's video in episode 3, we will be discussing the other wrestling show that happened the very next day on Sunday, and that was AEW All Out in Chicago. This is one of the biggest matches in the company's history, alongside with Double or Nothing. And I think that when we compare the two shows, Clash of the Castle and All Out, you could honestly make an argument that Clash of the Castle was the better show for the weekend. And I think personally for me, I would have to agree. I feel like All Out was a great show, but I feel like there were some creative decisions that was questionable throughout the entire show. And I feel like it was definitely a missed opportunity for, Tony Khan to kind of give the fans, what they want. And we're gonna go over our top 3 list here, but Mark, really quickly before we get started, what did you think of All Out?
I've obviously I'm wearing the AEW shirt still, but because I would prefer AEW over WWE recently, but lately I've been kind of like having like second thoughts on like what my decisions are, because now that Vince is gone and Triple H is now in charge of head of creativity and operations, WWE is so far has been putting on amazing like pay-per-view so far, and the weekly shows with Raw and SmackDown and NXT and all that stuff. But don't get me wrong, I love AEW still. AEW is like honestly still a little bit better in my opinion, but WWE is getting there. It's almost like a tie between I don't know what to watch now, because both of them are still good. But obviously, All Out was a little bit of a letdown for a lot of AEW fans. Last year's All Out was honestly way better than this one, in my opinion, because like what you said, there wasn't that many good bookings. There's matches that didn't really go quite well, or what people didn't really want. But I'm still a fan. I'm still going to attend shows, and maybe I'll attend WWE shows down the road, because as we all know, Survivor Series is going to take place in my hometown in Boston, Massachusetts. So maybe I'll go, maybe I won't. It would be my first pay-per-view, but well, that's a story for another time. But All Out was overall. I'm gonna give the rating actually right now, if you don't mind, Matt. I'm gonna
Go
say.
ahead.
I'm actually going to say All Out was a 6 out of 10.
Yeah.
So what would you say?
Yeah, I would say the same thing. Like, I'd also give All Out a 6 out of 10, and on my rating scale, a 6. For me, it means all right. Like, it was an all right show. It definitely had its good moments, but there were definitely a lot of moments that I felt like should have been the other way around. And if you don't know what we're talking about, we are going to cover those moments right now. But first, a couple things. Number one, if you missed episode 2, where Mark and I talked about Clash of the Castle, go back to our YouTube channel, and it is live right now. And plus, D-Pad Wrestling is on Instagram. We want you to GTS that follow button, and it is going to cover everything relating to news, rumors, and video reels that we will be releasing here on D-Pad Wrestling. So if you get a chance, go to the description box down below to follow D-Pad Wrestling on Instagram. And as always, we are just getting started here on YouTube, so it would be so much appreciated if you hit that subscribe button and click the bell for all your notifications for upcoming videos here on D-Pad Wrestling. So with that being said, let's get started with our top 3 list for AEW All Out. And I'm actually going to start off here, and my top 3 is going to be, well, first I'm going to start off with number 3. And for me, that happens to be the main event of the show, between CM Punk and Jon Moxley. This is their second encounter for competing for the AEW World Championship. The very first encounter was a couple weeks ago in Cleveland, where I was pretty confused as to why they decided to compete for the title very early. I'm not sure why. I think they wanted to play the story of, Punk came back from injury and, he just got injured. It was a really stupid idea for that to happen, because I think for me, it kind of ruined the anticipation for this match, really, because if they would have just saved it for All Out, I felt like this match would have had a much more important, much bigger fight feel, when really it was just ruined by their first encounter. But nevertheless, their second encounter between Moxley and Punk was definitely a lot better than their first encounter in Cleveland. It definitely went a lot longer. And for once, I'm surprised that Jon Moxley wasn't the one that was bleeding in the match. Thank God. I feel like every time somebody touches Moxley, he automatically bleeds. I'm like, thank God it wasn't Moxley. Thank God it was Punk. I mean, thank freaking God. Because
forehead is always the weakness. Every time when someone so-called pokes a finger at Moxley's forehead, out comes a bloodbath.
Yeah, especially with the promo that they cut a couple weeks ago, and Punk was like, I'm afraid to touch you, otherwise you'll start bleeding again. I was laughing because it's so true.
That was hilarious.
CM Punk hitting 3 go-to-sleeps on Jon Moxley, pinning him for the 1-2-3, becoming a 2-time AEW World Champion. And I feel like this is a match that was very important to him for, being the fact that he injured his foot, and, he won the title the very first time against Hangman Adam Page at Double or Nothing. And it was supposed to be the summer of Punk for AEW, but unfortunately the foot got in the way, and this kind of makes up for what had happened to Punk and what he was going through. So for those reasons, I'm putting CM Punk and Jon Moxley at number 3.
My third favorite match would have to be Miro, Darby Allin, and Sting versus the House of Black. Now, I'm pretty sure, a lot of people are saying oh, why'd you do that? Why don't you realize that the House of Black is being buried right now? They're literally, what's gonna happen to Malachi? And I'm like, yes, I know, but here's also the thing that I've been waiting for Darby Allin and Malachi Black to share the ring together, because I was really, really hoping for a dream match between Darby Allin and Malachi Black, both evil, evil looking characters going one-on-one with each other. I thought it was amazing, but it had to be with Darby Allin and Brody King, which was a pretty good coffin match, by the way. I will say that was a pretty awesome match. But Miro going in a rivalry with Malachi Black, it's also pretty amazing too. And Sting, of course, having that face-to-face moments with Malachi Black, just seeing who's going to make the first move and everything. But that match delivered very, very well, in my opinion. It was a pretty gruesome match. They just literally went all out on each other. The referee couldn't control these 3 guys. They just couldn't stop going after each other. It was brutal. It was violent. It was a great trios match. The big moment that caught me the most was Sting blowing the black mist into Malachi's face. A little eye for an eye there, because knowing that Malachi Black spit his black mist into Sting's face, so now Sting kind of does it in return. I'm like, wait a minute, he blew black mist. Does that mean that Sting could possibly be joining the House of Black? You never know what could possibly happen, but honestly, I don't know. I think him and Darby are a perfect are really doing really good together. But obviously, Sting blew the black mist into Malachi's face, and Darby Allin rolled Malachi up and pinned him for the victory for Miro, Darby, and Sting, leaving the House of Black another loss. And this one is really disappointing. I was hoping for Sting, Darby, and Miro to win. I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of hoping that they would win, but I also want what's best for the House of Black. And with Malachi Black and all the articles saying that he asked for his release in AEW because of his mental health issues and his terrible booking for some reason, which I don't know why. I thought he's been booking like very, very well this past year. I don't know what issues he really has with Tony Khan or with AEW, but I really do hope that Malachi, like gets the treatment or the help that he needs. But I really do hope that he doesn't leave AEW because he's been doing a hell of a lot better in AEW rather than WWE because they didn't know what the hell to do with him. I've been listening to his interview on Talk is Jericho, which is a podcast that Chris Jericho owns. Him interviewing Malachi Black would have to be one of my favorites because I love hearing about his story about how he transitioned from WWE to AEW. But it's a great podcast. I highly recommend checking it out. But yes, I'd say it was a pretty good match. But I do hope and pray for Malachi or Tommy in this case, his real name Tommy. Whatever he's going through, I really hope he gets the help that he needs.
Right. Yeah, no, I definitely would have to say that match was one of those creative mistakes that Tony Khan executed last night where House of Black lost. And I didn't know why, but after reading the reports, I would understand why. I just personally, I think that ever since joining AEW, he has done so much more than he's ever did on the main roster with WWE. The formation of the House of Black really complemented him well, and his character. Bringing in Brody King and like Buddy Matthews, was a great addition as well. And I know that the House of Black, personally for me, in terms of trios, when you look at the list of trios on that roster, the House of Black was my favorite trio in AEW. And when the tournament was announced, I was excited to see that they were included. And in fact, I saw who was competing in the tournament, and I originally predicted for the finals, I wanted to see a House of Black versus United Empire match for the trios titles, and with that match, I would have wanted to see the House of Black win it all, or hell, even House of Black versus the Elite, which I felt like that would have been another great match as well. And I felt like those three guys work so well together, and I feel like they're the most well-paired trio where they were just perfect to win the trios championships last night. Unfortunately, though, they lost to Dark Order, and I was really, really upset about that. Personally, for me, ever since he debuted and he squashed Cody, he's just been really unstoppable, and he really is one of those guys where he's like underutilized, and it has nothing to do with like his character, because his character is perfect. I mean, there's no one that could pull off better than Malachi. It's just the fact that his booking has been absolutely terrible. And I personally feel like he would have been perfect to capture the trios titles with the House of Black. But I really do hope that we don't see the last of him. I know that by reading some of the reports after the match, he blew a kiss to the crowd. He took a bow and he hugged Buddy Matthews and Brody King as they were exiting the ring. It's, I don't want to put any thoughts into my head, because if he does let go, then I feel more bad for Brody King and Buddy Matthews, because what will they do once their leader is gone? Personally, I don't think they're gonna go anywhere. Second favorite match, number 2, and that would be the tag team title match between the Acclaimed and Swerve in Our Glory. This is one of those matches where I was rooting so hard for one particular team, and a lot of fans in Chicago and everywhere wanted to win, and that was the Acclaimed. The Acclaimed are one of those tag teams where they first appeared when the company first started. And for them to get a title opportunity like this at one of their biggest shows of the year, you know, you just have to think, is there a better time for these guys to not only wrestle what is the most important match of their career, but also to win their first ever title? And to answer that question, it's no. Like, no, there isn't a much better time because it's Chicago. Chicago is a hell of a crowd, and throughout this entire match, Chicago was rooting for the Acclaim so hard. There were so many funny moments throughout the match, especially the scissor me a daddy chant, or the you can't scissor chant. I was just so amused by everything. And quickly, Swerve in Our Glory, they started off as faces because they're mostly like a face tag team, but they started to quickly but silently turn as a heel for the match. And I think a lot of it had to do with them focusing on Anthony Bowen's injured leg that, throughout the match. And I think that in that moment, they were really, really going on like pro Acclaim here. Unfortunately, it was a hell of a match, a lot of near falls. It's one of those matches where, you could definitely say it was one of the best matches, if not the best match on the card. But for me, going back to what I mentioned earlier with the 6-man tag, another creative mistake by Tony Khan by not having the Acclaimed win the tag team titles, because in this one, Swerve in Our Glory did retain the tag team titles, and a lot of people started booing when they won, especially when Billy Gunn decided to scissor Keith Lee, in which I was really hoping that Billy Gunn would just give him the finger. That didn't happen, and a lot of people were upset about it. But other than that, pulling that aside from beginning to end, this match was absolutely amazing. And hopefully down the line, we see the Acclaim hoping they win the tag team titles.
I'm going to say my second match would have to be between Chris Jericho and Bryan Danielson.
Ooh, really controversial one, but okay.
Bryan Danielson and Chris Jericho were going at each other. It was a great match, I will say, because, we brought back Lionheart, Chris Jericho, which was an amazing gimmick of his back in the old days when he used the blonde hair, and he looked a lot younger back then, obviously because he's in his 50s. But bringing it also leads me to a little bit of the match was good, but it also it is a little controversial, I will say. But for Chris Jericho, because he's one of my all-time favorite wrestlers of all time because of the amazing things that he does. But what I've been noticing is that he doesn't seem to be showing a lot of time with the Jericho Appreciation Society, even though he keeps calling himself a sports entertainer, and I'm gonna throw a fireball at you because I'm a wizard and all that stuff. That's like all sports entertainment stuff. But he brings back the Lionheart gimmick, which is him like as a wrestler. So it kind of like leads me like, what is Chris Jericho? Is he trying to be a sports entertainer? Is he trying to be a wrestler? Because I don't even know at this point. It kind of leads to like, what is he gonna do? Because Lionheart Chris Jericho is like a wrestler, but Jericho Appreciation Society is sports entertainer Chris Jericho. So I don't know what the hell's going on with Chris Jericho's booking, but I will say Bryan Danielson has been doing an amazing job in AEW as part of the Blackpool Combat Club, and the fact that I haven't seen these two wrestle in quite a while, it kind of gives me a little bit of nostalgia seeing these two wrestle again. Especially for Chris Jericho's age, because he's like, I think like 52 or 53. He's in his 50s and he's still going, which gives me a lot of respect for Chris Jericho, because knowing how old he is, he's still doing all of these amazing things, and he's not even he didn't even talk about retirement yet, which is crazy because, as we know, the Undertaker retired at like 55 or 56, but Chris Jericho is still going. And the story, and going back to what I said, the storyline with Chris Jericho and Daniel Garcia, if he's going to turn on Chris Jericho and leave the Jericho Appreciation Society, it just leads to more and more intriguing stuff. In my opinion, I know it seems a little bit controversial, but I do find the storyline to be pretty fascinating.
Yeah. I will say the match itself was great. I think that when you break it down, you know, it it was what you would call a traditional wrestling match.
Yeah.
Because what I what I noticed is that a lot of these matches that we're seeing nowadays requires a lot of extra, like extra things, some like high flying moves, some fast paced, like when really we sometimes forget that the traditional, wrestling back in the day, it was more of like toe to toe, like like pound for pound, like slamming on the mat, not doing a lot of these like extra things. And that's exactly what this match was. I definitely feel like this, for every traditional wrestling fan out there who, would prefer a more traditional wrestling match, this is, the perfect, match for you. I felt like, Chris Jericho winning was, definitely saw it coming with the low blow because, of course, being a heel that he is, he's going to have to do something. I was really surprised that Daniel Garcia didn't show up, because I just felt like he definitely would have came into the aid of, Bryan Danielson. Um, and for me, it's not the fact that I didn't care for the match as much. I just felt like it was placed in at the wrong time. I felt like this would have been a perfect opener to All Out, just really giving the crowd some excitement, for the show. Just giving them a little something, nothing too major to spoil it, but also nothing too, but nothing that's not going to be too boring. But this was a perfect traditional wrestling match. I believe that the right man won, and hopefully, I could definitely see Daniel Garcia siding, at the end with Bryan Danielson. And who knows, maybe he can join the Blackpool Combat Club. So
Let's move on to. I think we have to
yes,
give you your number one
I got my number one,
Wow.
and I've talked to you before about this match so many times, and it's one of the matches that I was looking forward to the most on this card, and I can confidently say that it was personally the best match of the night, and for me, it would have to be the trios tag team title match between the Elite and Dark Order and Heyman Adam Page. A lot of things that were going in through my mind with this match, and I've said this to you so many times. If the Elite won this match, the Elite, Kenny Omega, who came back from injury, Matt and Nick Jackson, the Young Bucks, all are EVPs of All Elite Wrestling. If those guys became the first trios tag team champions, I would have been pissed. Did I not tell you that before the show? Did I not tell you that a couple days before the show? Did I not tell you the past couple of weeks before the show?
And you know what happened?
They fucking won.
Fucking won.
They fucking won the match. The match was spectacular.
As soon as I saw them win the titles, like I was literally like finishing up like dinner and everything, and then I was like getting ready and everything. And then when I see, because I was running late on watching the show, but as soon as I saw like on my Instagram, on the AEW posting like the Elite have won the trios tag team, I'm like, okay, I better silence my phone before Matt calls me. I knew for a fact that you were gonna call me that night, and you did. All pissed off about the Elite winning.
I'm telling. I cannot. Listen. When it came to
and so why would this be your number one favorite match? I'm confused.
Listen to me. When we talk about creative mistakes that Tony Khan has made throughout the entire show, I cannot think of two perfect examples of the Acclaim not winning the tag titles, and of course, the Elite winning the trios tag titles. Because of course, it's the Elite, and they always have to win. They're starting. They're starting to become the Roman Reigns of factions. Really, it's just really. I just really don't understand. I just don't understand. Aside from the Elite, Dark Order was one of the first factions to appear in AEW. Before the House of Black came to AEW, the Dark Order was easily my favorite. I really loved, the pairings with like John Silver and Alex Reynolds, and then you had Evil Uno and Stu Graceland, which, why is he no longer there? Like, he should be there. And of course, you had 10. I feel like the Dark Order, after this match, the Dark Order should be considered criminally underrated. I feel like you cannot think of a perfect time for them to actually win their first gold since Brody Lee won the TNT title, their first gold in AEW. Yeah. John Silver and Alex Reynolds, one of the most underrated tag teams in that division. Johnny Hungy, baby! It's like, yeah. And plus with Hangman Adam Page and in the history that he's had with the Dark Order, the past, the past feuds, the past matches that the Dark Order has had with the Elite, like, sure, it's a match that we all kind of saw it coming. And it was going to be predictable. Like, I never want it to happen. But, given the fact that these two teams, these two factions, has had so much history, we all knew that this match was going to be amazing. And you know what? This match slapped so hard. There was so many moments in this match where I was getting, a lot of deja vu between, like, Kenny Omega and Hangman Adam Page. When they feuded for the world title last year, there were moments where, like, the Dark Order turned heel, on the Elite, and Hangman was telling them, knock it off. This isn't the way to go. When freaking the Elite turned heel, on the Dark Order, and I think Kenny Omega told them to knock it off or something like that. I don't know, but there were so many great moments, so many near falls where like, Dark Order and Hangman Adam Page should have won the match. Like, this entire match was absolutely memorable. It was definitely the match of the night. The wrong team won.
Yeah, wrong.
Like, you cannot listen to me. For Kenny Omega to come back as the Young Bucks, mystery partner, we all saw it coming that the Elite was going to make it to the finals. Why? Because he's Kenny Omega. He's the best bout machine. He's the cleaner. Arguably the best wrestler in the entire world. And to come back with the Young Bucks, it's like, fuck. They don't need it. They don't need the titles. At least I would have wanted Adam Cole to interfere, costing them the match. I would have wanted that. I just would have wanted the Elite
in quite some time, and that would have been a perfect way to, like, end the match with the Dark Order and Hangman Page winning the titles.
I would have. Listen to me. I just don't understand how. Look, listen. Just like the words of MJF when he cut his pipe bomb promo. It's not all Elite wrestling. It's all friends wrestling. It's like Tony Khan doing Tony Khan things. He started this company with the Young Bucks, with Kenny Omega, and they're being rewarded over something that nobody wanted in the first place. Okay?
Nobody.
There are other people out there who would agree with me that the Dark Order should have been the trios tag team champions. I mean, listen, Alex Reynolds and John Silver are a really good tag team, and their friendship with Hangman Adam Page, in which they have been recruiting to the Dark Order since their Brody Lee days when he was the leader of the Dark Order. I mean, how could it not scream, like a full circle moment? And speaking of which, speaking of Brody Lee, there was an amazing, I couldn't think of this earlier. There was an amazing spot where John Silver was doing the whole Brody Lee setup for his discus lariat, the whole, blow and then the away thing, setting up for the discus lariat. That would have been an amazing counter to pull it off on, I think it was Kenny Omega or one of the Young Bucks. That would have been perfect. Yeah. I'm not saying they would have won the match with that, but I felt like as a tribute to Brody, for them to actually, for John Silver to pull off that discus lariat for a pinfall would have been a perfect moment, but they didn't do it. They didn't do it. And you know what? We had the Elite.
I'm literally glad to have Kenny Omega back and everything. It's great to have him back, and it's great to have him reunite with the Young Bucks to recreate the original Elite from where it started. But to have them in a tag team titles opportunity, why? You just came back from injury from the person who took the AEW world title off of you, which was Hangman Adam Page at the time, and now you're going after literally another title. Why? Because you're the Elite, and you always have to win, and you can't give fucking Dark Order a break. Seriously, you can't. It's literally the same way as House of Black. They both these teams literally can't catch a break because of the losses that they're having. I mean, I know the Dark Order loses a lot, and well, let's be honest, they do lose a lot, and then you have the House of Black who's been pretty dominant but have had a few losses. But this is more toward Dark Order because they deserved these titles way more than the Elite.
Yeah.
And I was hoping for I was honestly hoping that the for Adam Cole and the Undisputed Elite to take place in it as well, but obviously Bobby Fish is not renewing his AEW contract, which is another thing that's pissing me off with this company.
And plus Kyle O'Reilly, he just got done with neck surgery, and apparently Adam Cole's injured too. It's I bet you if those guys were healthy, I have no doubt in my mind that they would have interfered and they would have costed the OG Elite the match. I would have. And it would have set up a feud for all of them to compete. But anyways, besides that, that match was amazing. Easily the best match of the night for me. That was my number one. And Mark, why don't you end off our list here with your number one match of the night?
Yeah, sure. So I'm glad we talked about this. There was literally a lot of stuff to get off our chest of what went down in All Out. But I think for my number one, I think you kind of already know what it is because of course it leads up to the best moment that happened in All Out. So I will have to say that the match that I enjoyed the most would have to be CM Punk versus Jon Moxley.
I knew
it. Main event. Going back to what we said about Jon Moxley and CM Punk starting off back in Cleveland was obviously a terrible idea, but at the same time it did kind of give CM Punk a little bit of more in a way more motivation to really get back out there and have go against Jon Moxley and have a rematch at All Out, especially with his coach delivering that really big promo that went on for 10 minutes or something, and then CM Punk walking up into the audience and signing the deal for signing the match for All Out, which to me was a really good way to build up both characters because these two are again extremely talented. You have Jon Moxley, who was the interim world AEW world champion, literally squashed CM Punk to become the new AEW World Champion, which, by the way, he is the first ever two-time AEW World Champion, and that shows how much Jon Moxley loves for AEW and is literally almost the face of AEW because he goes to show how successful he can be and how many wins he's had and how many losses barely few losses that he's been having like overall of this year. And then you have, CM Punk, who when he won against the title against Hangman Adam Page, I was so excited for Punk to have a nice long reign as champion. But then, when he got injured, he had to relinquish it. And then when he came back and was squashed by Jon Moxley, I was hoping for CM Punk to win because I want to actually see like a good long reign title defenses with CM Punk as the champion. But then, when the match took place in All Out, those two obviously was a way better match in my opinion. Those two was that match was one of the best ones I've seen. Probably the best match I've seen at All Out, which got everyone's attention because it's two major superstars, wrestlers going at each other, and literally, like we said before, CM Punk is the one who was bleeding all out instead of Jon Moxley, which is a first. Because I actually was hoping for Jon Moxley to like bleed out too. So you have CM Punk and Jon Moxley like literally headbutting each other, like getting like, if they were like literally like headbutting each other, like going all out, there would be like blood all over their faces, and I would have been like, yes, blood everywhere. Have a blood and guts match, something like that. But overall, I really do think that this match was my number one in my favor because you have CM Punk winning, which he can now have an official AEW World Championship reign. I don't know how long that's going to go. Who knows if he's going to get injured again? I don't know who's to say what could happen. And it gives Jon Moxley a loss, which he hasn't had in quite some time because as I've been watching, he's been literally winning every single match he's had for the past year, and I'm like, okay, like I get that. Can you give like Jon Moxley like a singles loss for like once? Like it's not going to make him look terrible. This is the moment that everyone has been waiting for. When CM Punk wins the title, the lights go out. You hear a recording saying that you've been out of action for a couple months.
Yep.
It makes the company bad. I will put you in the ladder match. We'll give you black dollars. We never heard what. Then you see the Joker come out, takes off the mask, and it is the devil himself, MJF. He has returned. He has won the casino match, and he is going to be the one to take the title from CM Punk.
Yes.
We are going to have CM Punk versus MJF Part 2, because let's be honest, the CM Punk and MJF feud was one of the greatest feuds I've ever seen ever in AEW history.
Absolutely.
Because that feud was brilliant. So now we get Part 2 of CM Punk versus MJF. And obviously, you've been telling me this for a long, long time, Matt. You've always said that MJF is going to be the one to take the title off of the world title, off of whoever it is, and it just so happens to be CM Punk.
Yeah, that's actually what I was actually going to bring up, but you said it. Yeah, so that was a pretty amazing moment. In fact, it was more than a pretty amazing moment. It was fucking awesome. I mean,
Awesome.
Look, I think that going into the show, we all had a feeling that the ladder match was going to be one of the first matches to be featured onto the card. And of course, one of the unique aspects about that match is the Joker. So no one knows who the Joker is until the match actually happens on that day. And there were a lot of names that was thrown out there as to who would be the Joker. I personally wanted it to be MJF, but I think for me he would have to go back to AEW in a way where he just went rogue. And what I mean by that is that he needed to be someone where when he came back he was going to align himself with a particular person, with a particular faction, just kind of creating his own thing and just kind of really becoming this I don't give a shit attitude. I want one thing only. I came back for one thing only, and that is the AEW World title. That's exactly what had happened here. Tony Khan creatively did a wonderful job in pairing MJF with Stokely Hathaway, which I think would be absolutely an amazing pairing. I think I not only speak for myself, but also to Mark, but also to everyone who's watching and all wrestling fans around when I say that MJF should be crowned the new AEW World Champion. I think that his return last night was absolutely amazing. And by the way, for those who are wondering, this video is being recorded on Monday, which is the day before All Out. So this video is going to be released on Thursday. So I do apologize for the confusion. I don't know how Tony Khan did it, but he was able to bring back MJF, arguably their biggest star in that company right now. And I think that it's only a matter of time when we will see, you know, him feuding with Punk and challenging him for the title, you know, whether if it's at, you know, Grand Slam in Queens, which I predict it will happen, or it will be in Newark in November, which is going to be a Full Gear. It's going to be a very, very fun ride. And I think aside from the MJF return, All Out was, like we said, an all right show. Definitely some moments that were good, moments that were questionable, but I feel like that MJF return definitely overshadowed everything that happened. And with that, we are all out of time. Mark, thank you so much for joining us here for your first ever appearance here on D-Pad Wrestling. We hope you had a fun time, and we hope that you could join us again for more future videos.
Absolutely. You know, I had an amazing time. Thank you so much for having me. I love pro wrestling just as much as you do, and I enjoy talking about it. You know, I could talk about it all day long. So bring me back whenever you want. I will gladly give my personal opinions on any matches.
Yeah, and hey, you know what? Wrestling talk is always the best kind of talk. There's no better feeling than that. And we hope that you out there, D-Pad Nation, enjoy this video, and we will see you all so soon. And that's the bottom line, is D-Pad Wrestling says so.